Argentine peso plunges after rightist who admires Trump comes first in primary vote.
Here's a summary of the article.
Buenos Aires, Argentina. The Argentine peso plunged Monday after an anti-establishment candidate who admires former President Donald Trump came first in primary elections that will help determine the country's next president. Javier Milei rocked Argentina's political establishment by receiving the biggest share of primary votes for presidential candidates in the October general election to decide who leads a nation battered by economic woes. Milei, 52, wants to replace the peso with the dollar, and says that Argentina's central bank should be abolished. One of the things the government is trying to convey is that devaluation and all these things are our fault, Milei said in an interview Monday with cable news channel LN+. The drop in the value of the peso means that already high inflation will accelerate, making getting to the end of the month even harder for ordinary people. The candidates in the main opposition coalition, United for Change, were at 28% and the governing Union for the Homeland Coalition had 27%. In order to win the vote in 2 months, Milei would have to increase his share of the nation's votes by 15%, a high hurdle even in a nation where voters tend to favor candidates they see as winners. Argentina is struggling with annual inflation over 100%, rising poverty and a rapidly depreciating currency, and Milei first attracted wider support by calling for the country to replace the peso with the US dollar. Ahead about the vote in Argentina, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador stated that inflation and economic crises always benefit the right and conservatism, which is somewhat what's happening in Argentina, and he mentioned the case of Hitler.
This post received a score of 5,500, with an upvote ratio of 93%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
To be fair, the peso was going to plunge right after the election in either case.
A butterfly flaps its wings, Argentinian peso plunges.
The Argentinian peso rises, believe it or not, plunged again.
Markets panic. Argentine peso plunges amid Argentine peso's rise. Investors worried. Once-in-a-lifetime event.
Milei looks like a Mike Myers character.
He uses the services of a seer in order to talk with his dead dogs. They in turn allowed him to talk to God, who gave him the mandate to run for president.
The world is in such a weird place right now that I read this and I'm not sure whether or not this is a joke.
It is not. He looks like a budget Austin Powers LMAO.
Argentine peso was going down the drain before that though.
Argentina's historical problem is that the government spends way more than what it collects in taxes due to an overinflated infrastructure and too many social programs. The issue here is that in order to do what he wants, the government forcefully needs to buy millions of dollars on the international market every day. The government doesn't have the money to do this, so it would have to go into spiraling debt to achieve this goal. This fucking maniac thinks he can counter this by basically eliminating most government agencies and keeping the bare minimum to run a government. Greater than, but it's akin to cutting of your arm to stop your hand from bleeding. That's only true if you believe there's any chance the government will manage the peso better than the dollar will be for Argentina. I don't believe this has happened at any point in the history of the country, definitely not in living memory. To be fair, it didn't manage dollar well either when it was pegged to the peso. Remember, from one day to another it changed all accounts to pesos and froze withdrawals as a flight of capital threatened to create a run on the banks. The problem is societal, structural, and political in Argentina. Adopting the dollar isn't going to fix it, it's just going to stop the bleeding and kick the problem so it blows up again in a few years when it's even worse. To quote Ferdinand Foch, this isn't peace, it's an armistice for 20 years. You didn't solve anything, you were just fucking your children.
Admires Trump is certainly the least important, interesting or relevant aspect of Milei. Is this MFER Austin Poderes?
August? N. Poderes.
Austin Powers? This sounds like desperately trying to make it look like Argentina is in shambles because of a man who isn't even part of the government.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.